Hey guys, welcome back to Lord Hippo Guy's channel, and today we're going to be going over part 2. This should be the last part of Aliens Infiltrator. I just wanted to tell you what ends up happening with the book, what happens with Palace Station, what happens to Dr. Tim Honecker, what happens to Dr. Cruz, what happens to Dr. Crash, or Cash, what happens to Dr. Anton, the Frenchman, McGee. So I figured, yeah, why don't we talk about it? Um, all right, so last we stopped off, we had the white alien that was created, and there's a bunch of other xenomorphs. Now, if you remember Monica, which was Dr. Honecker's ex-girlfriend who turned out to be a killer, you find out that she also became an alien. She becomes the striped alien. You learn more about her later. In the actual video game Aliens Fireteam, you end up, I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you watch any of my videos, you might know already. But as we continued on there, basically they do a lot of tests and trials, pretty much, on all these aliens. They test which one's smarter. They find out that the white one has such a high IQ, it is able to communicate with the other aliens that aren't even in the same room with it. And the other aliens do whatever he says. He doesn't even move. He just stands there staring menacingly, and then all of a sudden they'll all start attacking their enclosure. Now, their enclosure is very strong, so they don't end up breaking out of it for, for a while, actually. Now, I forgot to mention that another doctor actually ended up dying. You remember the original businessman with the beard? He had the suit. He was really rude to Dr. Honecker that I talked about earlier. Well, when the first little spider monster escaped, it did end up killing him. Stabbed him right in the heart. So a new guy comes in, and this new guy who comes in is just, he's even worse. He has these synthetic robots that follow him around that look like people, but they're pale white. And these robots, basically, that follow him around, they listen, they do whatever he says, and he hates aliens. He doesn't like what they're doing here. He doesn't understand it. And he's like, if there's another mess up, I'll personally get rid of all your hard work anyway. I don't care. And they're all like, whoa, okay, don't mess with this guy. It's what they're thinking, you know? Get destroyed. Oh, dab on them. But, so that's what they're basically thinking, right? Well, as they continue, they do a lot more experience, and they find out that if you threaten the white one, the pale white one that's on the screen right here, this guy, all the other aliens stop what they're doing because they obey him. Well, flash forward, and we're following Victor Rawlings, who is the security chief, and another guy. And they're basically doing their regular sweep where they check every room to make sure that everything's good. And at the same time, they're also still looking for Fairbanks, who, if you remember, he ran away. He released a spider monster earlier in the book. So, he's still kind of in trouble. And he's somewhere, in the station, because the station is described as like a huge town/city, basically. Ginormous. Well, as they continue on and they, are looking for him, they find what looks to be like a dead thing in the corner. And they're like, oh, it's got like spider legs and something like that. What is it? That's what they're wondering. Well, I said my ultimate's ready. That's cool. Oh wait, Z. I just want to shoot a zip line over here. Yay! Anyway, as they are walking in there, they see this weird, broken down spider looking thing, and they're like, what is that? And well, they turn around and they go to walk over to it, and it begins to stand up. And what they describe is the body of a spider, but the torso of a man, but where his head would be, it's split open, and there's 3 tendril-like tongues that open with teeth surrounding it. It's still got the arms, 2 of a human, and they're like, that's Steve Fairbanks. Oh, God. So they both turn around and they begin to run because neither of them brought a weapon with them. They just brought a baton. And what are they going to do? Respect my authority and hit them? Yeah, good luck with that. So as they are running, Victor Rawlings is running, and he's like, man, I really regret never doing any more exercise after the Marines. So that's I thought that was funny as he's running. So as he's running, he ends up pulling the fire alarm to try and warn people, but instead all that does is make people come out of their rooms and look around, and now the monster's attacking them. Now, mind you, this monster's 8-10 feet tall. It's huge. It's a tall monster. Right? And it's running around, it's climbing on walls, going on circles, and going around like that. Creepy, right? And as it's doing that, like everyone's like, what are we, like everyone begins running. Well, the director believes that it's one of the xenomorphs that escaped, that are in the cage. So he calls down, he's like, all your experiments are going to be burned. And Cruz is like, no, what are you doing? Like, it's not ours. All of our creatures are there. And he's like, no, I don't believe you. And he goes, and as he's like having each one of these robots walk by, now mind you, there's like 11 or 12 of these xenomorphs, right? That's a lot. And the synthetics just shove them aside because they're robots and they're way stronger. And they walk by and they push the button to burn each one of them. And as they begin burning it, the white one just sends like a full-on assault. And they're attacking the glass harder than they ever did before. And eventually, while they're doing that and they're trying to stop the robots, they don't notice that this is happening. Cruz does, though, and he's running to go hit the button to stop the white one, right? But it's too late. One of the glasses break. And what do you think the alien does? It goes out and attacks right away? No, it doesn't. The aliens begin unlocking all the other... It shoots and unlocks the cage for the white one. And as the white one gets out, it turns to all the other aliens, and they all wait as they begin to open all the cages. While all the people try and run, the two synthetics that were in there attempt to kill one of the aliens, and they begin, like, fighting the alien as the alien just knocks his head clean off. Well, the other synthetic ends up killing it, does end up killing one of them, but then the other three just destroy the synthetics. Cruz turns around and goes, what have we done? As he runs away, and so does Honecker. Well, Honecker and Cash both run away to their room, and they're standing there, and Honecker's like, he's terrified, he's scared, but he starts, like, mocking Cruz, because, you know, they're in that, like, state where you're, like, in disbelief, so you, like, start, like, telling jokes and stuff like that. And while they're mocking Cruz, Cruz is running, and he goes, for some reason, I hear someone quoting what I say all the time. And he knocks on the door and opens it, like, he knocks on the door, and Honecker turns and opens the door and goes, Cruz! And he goes, that was a pretty good impersonation of me. So Honecker, Cruz, and Cash all form a team together. They don't know where the French guy went anymore. They saw him run off somewhere, so he could be anywhere at this point. Victor Rawlings runs to his room, but to his surprise, a couple of the other retired Marines are also in his room with him. And they're waiting, like, they're like, oh my gosh, we were waiting for you. And he was like, oh my gosh, because earlier in the book, man, I forgot to say this in part 1. Okay, good thing I had a part 2. Earlier in the book, he said he's putting together a team of all the ex-Marines because he's afraid something might go wrong. Bing, 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 smart guy over here, because things did go wrong. But long story short, the Cruz group and the Rawlings group eventually are walking, and they both meet up. When they meet up, Cruz takes control because he's had the most experience, and he's like, first things first, I need to make it back to the science room. I'll be back. And they're like, okay. So they wait for him, and he runs all the way back to the science room, like, really stealthily. And when he looks in the room where the aliens were, they're gone. None of them are there. None of them. So he grabs the acid-proof suit that he built, puts that on, puts the helmet on, even though it doesn't really fit with his afro, he says. He ends up grabbing a flamethrower that he had in the room, and he begins running. What? I have no idea. No, they're not in there anymore. Just, whatever. Nobody's watching this part anyway. Probably going to skip right through it. Beep bop, beep bop. You guys want to see something cool? Here, wait here. Let me show you something. Oh, what's this? Oh, that's right. It's a katana, baby. Your boy has one of those. What else? Now you might be like, is this a plastic gun? No, it's actually a flare gun. Now you might be wondering, why do you need a flare gun? Allow me to explain. Somebody breaks into my house. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, ice to meet you. And then I hit them. They're going to think that it's an ice ray, but in reality it's a flare gun. So, get completely destroyed. Dumpstered on, kid. Okay. Yeah. Also, you want to see something else really cool? Can you see this? Look, ready? As you begin to drink your tea, there's a hippo in the bottom of it. I thought that was really cool. But continuing on with what I was saying, basically he gets a flamethrower. He makes his way all the way back to the other group. They go all the way to the control room and they go in there. There is some, I think there's 2 aliens that they end up melting. Their group together handled the 2 aliens pretty well. As they get in there and they're hiding in there, they take full control. And the guy who's running the place is like, "This is mutiny." And they're like, "Mutiny? There's literally aliens running. And what did you do?" And he's like, "Oh, I put everyone on lockdown and I'm not going to go fight the aliens." So what do the aliens do? They start kidnapping people and they start putting more eggs in front of them. Oh dear. And now they're creating more and more aliens. But luckily they were able to lock them in the cafeteria. So, I mean, some of them, at least, were stuck in the cafeteria. So that's good for a little bit. As it continues on, though, another woman ends up knocking on the control room door, and she's like, "Hey, is there... I was told that the people who run this place are in here." And Cruz is like, "Okay, let her in." And she's like, "Really? Like, something's, like, off about her, right?" And she's like, yeah. I flew a ship in here because there was this distress signal and I was seeing if anyone could help. And they just told me that there was monsters running around." And he's like, "Oh, yeah? Okay, they told you that?" And she's like, yeah. And she's like, could maybe you guys accompany me outside to, over here?" And they're like, No, I don't think I will. And she's like, "Oh," and he's like, "Tell you what, though, the monsters, they don't see you if you move really quietly. They only hear by sound. And stay close to the walls stay in the middle of the room because they sleep close to the walls. All right?" And she's like, "Oh, but I heard there was another monster in here." And he said, "Oh, you didn't mention that earlier." And she was like, well, and he's like, "Don't worry, you'll be fine." And they start pushing her towards the door. And she's like, "No, I swear, I'm from off-site." And Cruz gets Rawlings, and he's like, "Rawlings, have you ever seen her before?" And he's like, "No, actually, I haven't." Which means that if Rawlings hasn't seen her, it might be true. But as they start pushing her towards the door more, she's like, Fine. You're madmen. Okay, I'm not from off-site." And they're like, "Why'd you lie to us?" And, "Well, because you guys are trying to stage a mutiny." Like, "No, we're not. There's actual monsters around here." And she's like, "No, that's not true." Kooky, right? Anyway, basically, he's like, "So let me guess what your plan was. You wanted us to follow you out there, and then there's going to be a bunch of security guards there that are waiting for us, right?" And she's like, "No, that's not true." And he's like, "Okay." And he opens the door and he goes, "All right, I'll follow you out there, don't worry." And he hears footsteps running, and he just turns the door and just torches them all with the flamethrower and then closes the door. She's like, "That's murder, you're a murderer." And he's like, "They were going to murder me and all of us. You guys are insane." And she's like, "That's not true. We have the situation under control." And he's like, "Really? What's your plan?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know the plan, but it's under control." She's obviously cuckoo for cocoa nuts. Cuckoo for coconuts? Cocoa Puffs. There we go. Anyway, they eventually decide that they're going to try and make it to one of the landing pads. So they, as a whole group, decide to move out. She says that she doesn't trust them, so she's going to stay here. Well, as they start to move out and they start to move further, you eventually do hear her scream in terror, and that's all you hear. And he's like, "Well, she should have moved with us, And, he's right. She should have gone with them. I don't know why she doesn't. As they continue moving on, though, you hear something crawling on the top of the ceiling. And as everyone turns around, it's the Fairbanks monster. And he grabs one of the girls and he just starts eating her head. Like, she's still, halfway alive. And Rawlings and Cruz are trying to get a good shot at it. But the creature literally is, moving her body in front of him so you can't hit him. And then eventually the Rawlings and Cruz are like, "You know what? I'm not going to just sit there and let her be eaten alive." And they just melt it. Just rip it to shreds. I honestly really want to know what the Fairbanks monster looks like. I wonder if anyone made any art on it. That'd be cool. Anyway, they just light it up. Pow, 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 pow. Rip it to shreds. And they continue moving on their way. Well, as they get to where the landing zone is, they notice that all of the remaining xenomorphs, including the white drone, are all waiting there. Oh, dear. Yeah. And who do they end up running into? But the director and 2 other people that were with him. And they're like, "Oh, the rest of our group was all murdered earlier." And they're like, "Oh, gosh, fine, you can join us. We're stronger together." And he's like, "Oh," and he's like a little crybaby. And I was like, loser. Anyway, as they continue moving on, they notice the aliens turn, and they a small group of like five of them run at the group, and the group is attempting to fight them off, and the aliens are just too much, and they're beginning to kill. Rawlings, in the middle of his firefight, kills an alien, but as it jumps at it, the acid melts his skin. Him and another woman die right next to each other as they finish off an alien. Another alien they end up killing, another one they end up killing. Then Cruz finally turns his gas tank that has the flamer fuel, and he goes, forget this. I'm tired of having nightmares of these creatures. And he runs straight at them, right? And Cash has one of the guns, and she's really nervous, and she's panicking, and she's not taking the shot as Cruz is moving towards the creature, and the creatures finally start like attacking him and ripping him to shreds, and he's screaming, and then Honecker grabs the rifle from her. He breathes in, he waits, he lines up the shot, and he remembers the training that Cruz gave him earlier in the book when they were just, beginning to become friends, and he fires and hits it. Boom! And a huge explosion happens. Fire everywhere. And who do they end up finding walking the halls, though, with them? A drunk Frenchman comes walking around and goes, oh, hello. Apparently, he poured the pheromone that he's been working on. That was his big, science thing, to see if the pheromone would make the aliens not be able to see him. And it worked for about 2 hours. For about 2 hours, the aliens could not see him. He was, physically invisible. And he decided to just get completely and utterly wasted. Well, they end up running into him, and while they're finding him, this one dude, the director guy, runs past both of them, and he's like, "Ha! I'm taking the spaceship for myself." And as he's running past, one of the aliens that's dying reaches its hand out and grabs him and pulls him into the fire and kills him. Now all three of them, now that's Honecker, Cash, and Anton. They all make it to the spaceship, and as they make it on the spaceship, they hit it to the Katanga refinery, and that's where it shoots them. And they're like, we finally made it. And they're like, ah. And as they're loading into the Katanga refinery, they're 10 minutes out. Leon 895, the second one that they made, was hiding on the ship, and it jumps down and kills Anton. And then Honecker turns the pulse rifle and just melts it. Kills it. And he's really sad because he's like, what? I could have done more. And as they are beginning to dock in on top of the ship, is a striped xenomorph. Yeah, Monica. And she breaks into the glass as they both run out. And then as they run out, they're closing every door behind them. They're trying to weld doors behind them. They're trying to make sure they're all the doors are closed. And they finally make it to a spot, and they're like, hey, we need help, and they send the distress signal, and while they send the distress signal, Honecker turns and he's like, come on, Cash, let's get out of here. And then she gets stabbed right through the back by Monica. The tail goes right through her, and she dies right in front of him. And he's like, no, and then he runs. And he hides in a supply closet, and his final words are, I don't know if I'm safe. I don't know if anyone is still alive, but I hear something moving closer to me. And that's where the book ends. And I was so sure that he was... And then you get to play the video game, and you get to find out what happened to him. And that is Aliens Infiltrator. That's the whole book, pretty much. So I figured I'd let everyone know what I thought about it and what it was like. And if you liked it, I recommend it. I don't normally read books. These are just books, and I don't read books, but this is a good book. So I would definitely recommend that. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you wanted me to explain more stuff, maybe some comics or stuff like that, I'd love to do that too. Catch you in the next one. Bye.